Most of our MPs, by default, or prime ministers, they must be very British nationalists. They must talk about British values here and abroad. They must talk about the Commonwealth, ex-colonial countries with pride. We must talk about having nuclear so we can fight Putin. We must talk about all these things that represent...
This is the recipe of what turns me off.
Yeah, but Liz is a special type of you've now surpassed the woman threshold of dislike. Boris embodies post-Brexit Britain. So the UK will end up being England very soon, England and Wales. And once you have England and Wales, then what are you? You're a very small island who, if everyone leaves you, you can be attacked by anyone at any point.
Literally. Time is money, so spend yours listening to me talk about things that are important to me and my people.
Time is money.
Hello and welcome to Maya's Minutes. This is the 4th episode of the 2nd series. I'm joined by the incredible Paseo, and we are speaking on politics, class, economics, and all the stuff that you don't normally understand, but she's here to break it down for us. If you haven't listened to the previous episodes, you can go ahead and do that. A little clip from the last episode is here.
It's more about sending a message to Russia than to show solidarity with Ukraine, in my opinion.
Right. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
That's 100%.
But they can look like the same thing.
Yes.
But it just
and it's just handy.
Yeah, just handy. It looks the same thing. But they've been trying... Putin's biggest weapon right now is gas. And when you rely on a natural resource, that's why he has membership into the power structures of the world. Like, he's not there because he's the greatest politician of all time. You've got a resource that the world needs. Some people have oil. Some people have the dollar. Some, you know what I mean? And your one is gas and oil. So that's what that is.
And we're going to get straight into it. So, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the budgets. The money.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking, what do you want to know?
Basically, the first thing I want to know is it that when Prime Minister is trying to win, they have to show you their plan, obviously, their manifesto, what they're going to achieve, blah, blah, blah. Part of that is money. This is how I'm going to divide it, basically, and this is the budget for it.
Yes, sir.
Is that it?
Yeah, so look at the budget as basically what they're trying to say is, this is how we're going to spend the money.
And often they don't do it, do they, what they say that they're going to do?
They say many things, but deep down they probably know they're only going to do one or two.
Okay.
But the other things are there to make you vote for them.
Sure.
Or to make you confident in their ability. So they might say something like, I'm going to invest in schools in their manifesto, which is what they use when they're running for election or they're campaigning to get them into government. So I'm going to do this and this. And then the budget comes and the budget basically goes, okay, now that we've looked at what's in our pocket, in the treasury, this is what we can do. And this is our ambition and these are the reasons why. So that's what it is. It's kind of like filling in the gap between what they think they can do versus now that they've seen the budget, this is what they're supposed to do.
So it's like a business plan. Yeah,
then the OBR, which is the Office of Budget Responsibility, that is a group of people or organisation that basically, once they listen to the budget, they then they respond to it. Or the government talk to them and go, is this financially feasible? Is this economically sound? Because you can basically say, I'm going to spend this amount of money, but they will be able to be like, because we're the Office of Budget Responsibility, they can tell you the implications of that or go...
the risks.
Tell us that, oh, they're lying, or oh, this is good, or this is what implications are. So there's that other layer now.
Okay, so they're the ones that fact check it.
Basically fact check it, yeah.
Okay.
Essentially.
Do they do the budget before they put their manifesto? Like, do they have to get in first and then give us their budget? Or do they show us their budget before they get in?
After they get in.
That's so dumb.
Yeah, it's after they get in. Like, you can have... Obviously, if it's the same government... now, so they've been around for how long now? Like 12 years, which is incredible. So
incredibly sad. So
they have a good understanding of what's going on anyway. So a lot of what they're saying shouldn't really be too far from the truth.
Fine.
But I guess where there's different personalities involved or different objectives, someone like Rishi, for example, was known for being someone quite conservative in terms of how he wants to spend money.
So that means he doesn't want to spend a lot.
He doesn't want to spend a lot of money because he genuinely feels like we're in a bad situation. And if I spend more just to get your votes, then I'm leading England down the wrong path.
Okay.
Whereas Liz, throughout her campaign, she started saying a bit of things that will kind of like making people want to vote, or saying she's going to reverse certain taxes and stuff. And he was like, no. But then that made him unpopular because British politics now is about personality. It's not really about economic, intelligence or literacy, I guess.
This is a curveball of a question, and just move your microphone a bit.
Sorry, yeah.
Who is the Prime Minister of yours, or not even a Prime Minister, political person, who's got an awful personality but is good, in your opinion?
That's a good question, I'm trying to think, who's awful personality that's good? I think, you know what it is? It's a previous Prime Minister or any person in politics.
Any person in politics. I'm not going to know the difference.
Yeah. Do you know what it is? And this has come with a lot of time Jeremy Corbyn.
Really?
And I don't think he has a bad personality. I think what we're trying to say is a personality that doesn't necessarily rub everyone the right way or win the votes. I always was fond of him, like he's interesting and stuff, but I think we were at a time where it was like, you're not recognizing that the British public have a certain way they take in information. And so I felt it was a bit like, do more, or people around you, if you can't do more, let everyone around you help you.
Take the reins.
But I felt like they left him to his own devices because I think obviously there was infighting at the time. But in hindsight, when you look at what we need and what the government are trying to do, what they have to do, he said all of it. He told us that we need free Wi-Fi everywhere. At the time, it was kind of like, why is that a priority for people? COVID hit.
Now we know.
Now we know why we need Wi-Fi.
Did he say that because of COVID?
No, he wasn't around COVID.
Yeah.
He in 2019, he wasn't around.
So what was his reason at the time why he wanted us to have Wi-Fi?
He is a man of moral and ethical, I guess.
Is not for you, buddy.
Yeah, he's got a certain standing where for him it's like, it's not about what is popular, it's about what is necessary. And so we did not deserve him at the time. And it's a shame because it's like, even those of us who can speak kind of him in hindsight, I think at the time I didn't even do more to really be like, sorry, but do you like him? Or is it just that you're not fond of how he's presenting information? And now I'm like, do you know what? You only know what you've got until it's gone.
How was it that he was presenting information that was bad? What was he doing?
It was more about the case of like, England like a certain type of person. Just personality-wise, we like people who can invoke confidence in us. We like people who are quite British values. And I say Britain, we as a whole, not as the different subgroups.
I'm not saying that, like, I know you're not necessarily talking about us, but how is Boris that?
Because Boris invokes a sense of, he's been mayor, he was mayor. So it's
True.
like giving someone who's already done a job.
I guess.
And we know that he's a Conservative who was mayor of a Labour city. Like London is basically a Labour city. And he brought in things that we can recognise.
Boris Bikes.
And even though people say it's Ken Livingstone and all that stuff, but whatever, he brought it in. And then there's a personality that he was able to get that was quite like, oh, I love people who are so important, but they also seem quite down to earth. And he played on that whole, I'm a bit ditzy, but I'm really smart. Yeah. And that becomes endearing to the British public. I think at a time where you don't really know anyone else's name, Boris is someone that you remember and you're like, I'm used to him. Whereas Jeremy Corbyn was somebody, and we also do like a bit of distance between our MPs and us, even though we don't like to admit it. Whereas Jeremy Corbyn will take the train and he will sit on the floor sometimes, or a lot of and I think the main thing was the nationalism. Most of our MPs, by default, or prime ministers, they must be very British nationalists. They must talk about British values here and abroad. They must talk about the Commonwealth, ex-colonial countries with pride. We must talk about having nuclear so we can fight Putin. We must talk about all these things that
represent... This is the recipe of what turns me off. Yeah,
but whereas Corbyn was like, we need to disarm. We don't need nuclear weapons. We need to come out of all these countries. I don't agree with most of the stuff that makes us British. And so that really affected him.
He was challenging people's relationship to Britishness and making them have a bit of an identity crisis.
So yeah, he was really targeting Britain in a way where Britain is not ready for that. Britain's not ready for those conversations.
Is Rishi more better in what Britain want in terms of Britain's the best place ever, let's arm up?
I think society has moved on since 2019, where we've had the pandemic and we had the cost of living crisis. Yeah. And so now we are quite desperate. And we are in a situation where we're like, right, the world is actually mad. In fact, Rishi didn't win originally.
Trust me, no one wanted a brown man.
Exactly. As brown man, and nobody wanted to hear the truth about what side was happening, but also we were still on the personality politics, and Rishi doesn't have that type of personality.
Yeah.
He's very vanilla.
Dry.
But compared to Boris, he looked more serious.
Yeah.
But when Boris was no longer in the picture, it was hard to sell Rishi. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, sometimes a lot of people, you're only comparable. As a standalone, we don't know you, but I can only compare you to someone else.
Yeah, very good.
So I think when he was gone, it was kind of like, so what can we do? This trust mirrored herself on Thatcher. It's been a while since Thatcher was in the picture.
Right, so I'm glad you brought her up. What did you think when Liz hit the scene? I personally, as you know nothing. So for me, I was just like, oh, it's out of a woman or an Asian man. For me, they're both good bets because it's a representation on both sides. Of course. So I was happy about that. And then I did feel and I did see that she got extra beatings because I cannot understand a world where, I know you just said like, he's endearing and all those positives about Boris, but he's a joke man to me. Yeah. And I don't know how a serious person who pays money and taxes and all of that, I'm talking like above me and on paper, how are you looking at this man who literally doesn't have a clue, honestly, and thinking, this is my leader? And so when I see he gets the love he gets, I'm just bare confused. And then I see how they're treating Liz, and I don't know anything about her, so I'm saying it from an ignorant perspective, but I cannot ignore that they probably gave her a harder time because she's a woman.
I mean, we don't have the luxury of having a personality that is good or bad.
Yeah.
You're just a woman. So by being a woman, that's already an issue. But Liz is a special type of, you've now surpassed the woman threshold of dislike because she had a kind of a reputation for not being very bright.
Ooh.
In terms of, not like bright, but missing the details. She wasn't a details person. She was very quite performative, and she was very like, oh, let's be very capitalist and quite extreme in her capitalism. But it looked very just as someone who would want to be ambitious.
Fine.
And so she kind of, for a lot of people, she came out of nowhere. She came under like Boris Johnson's.
I'd never heard her.
And that's one of the issues, is that the reason why she got a lot of slack, apart from being herself, is the fact that she was seen as a puppet to Boris. How could she run when she was so close to Boris's reign that if you throw Boris out, most people who were attached to Boris left as well. Yeah. But she stays. And so everyone was like, this is just Boris
reincarnated.
Basically, and doesn't come across as someone who has her own views. She looks like someone who's given views, but she has one particular thing that she cares about, which is to be seen as very neoliberal and like, I want to do this. But then it's like, in the world that we live in, it makes you look dumb. Because how can you pursue such a liberal agenda? And when she came up with her and Kwasi Kwarteng came out with the budget, even the people who love money were like, or the billionaires were like, this is stupid. Nobody asks you to reduce the tax rate of the very rich. It's like someone in the playground who's in year 3 trying to dance for the year 6s. That's what I saw it as. And they were like, cut the cameras.
Yeah, but okay. But you said that people love Boris.
People love Boris, yeah.
So why don't they like his puppet?
Because
that's the kind of dumb shit he would do, I think.
You can't inherit. There's very few people that can inherit the likability of their predecessor. And don't forget, Boris didn't go and say, Liz, I want you. Right. Boris was ousted.
He didn't co-sign her, yeah.
So there's people who are upset that Boris isn't there anyway. So it's not like they're going to love Liz. Some of them are still focused on getting Boris back. On top of that, Boris's significance isn't necessarily because of the leadership. It's Brexit. So after being a mayor, Brexit came along, and he was the face of the 350 or whatever money to NHS. That's what Brexit was going to do and stuff like that. So Boris brought the Tory party a lot of red seats. Red seats being Labour supporters, because they were the Northerners, they were the working class who normally vote Labour because they're ex-trade union people, but they voted Tory because they wanted to leave the EU. Yeah, they wanted to leave the EU.
Fine, okay.
So Boris embodies post-Brexit Britain, which you can't then...
You don't get that.
And she was also a Lib Dem once in her time in her life, and people don't let that go as well. So it's like...
Yeah, it is a bit that questionable that she switched sides like that.
Yeah, I'm open to people switching sides because I feel like most people are Lib Dem when they're Tories, but when you have to do groupthink, you're Conservative.
Okay.
And the political system is a two-party system. So even if I'm like communist, for example, but is it Labour or Tories, I'm going to vote Labour. Do you know what I mean? It's just, as a groupthink, I have to vote Labour because it's closer to shifting it.
Yeah.
And if I'm a Lib Dem, I'm going to vote Conservative because it's closer to shifting it. But as an individual, a lot of people will probably self-identify as like liberal, some sort of liberal.
Okay. And so, yeah, so they got to do the budget. Thank you for clearing that up. I didn't know that they've got to show the budget after they've got in. So dumb. Why would you do that? That's basically lying. You can basically say, I'm going to do this, this and this. Oh, hang on. Now I'm in. I'm going to check. And I can't.
But that's why the manifestos never have any numbers.
So what do we go on? We just go on what they say.
You have to think, what they're trying to say is that if I was a leader or our party was in, this is the areas that we want to focus on. That's what they're trying to say to you.
And what did Liz say she wanted to focus on?
She was more focused in... They both said more or less the same thing, but
and Rishi said the same thing.
Yeah, but she was just more about talking about like reversing taxes and being like any taxes that were raised, she's going to take them away. Stuff like that. Like she's trying to show we're going to get more money in our pocket.
Again, like I say, don't know. I know we must be in trouble after how much people were furloughed, money lost from all angles through COVID. We've got to be in serious trouble.
Serious trouble.
So how can she say with Vim, I'm going to give you even more money?
Because she's an MP who, even if most of us don't, even if we don't believe her, there's people out there who can't disprove it. You can't disprove it.
From logic, you can disprove it. Like, we don't have the money because we got it all for free when we were all on our couches not doing stuff.
Yeah.
So how we got, eat out for half price and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of stuff we were getting told at this point.
Yeah.
How can you think there's more money there around?
Because half of it is she knows what she has to say just to get you guys to listen to her anyway. So most of it is probably something that she doesn't believe in. And it's more about once I get there, I can get there and then go, rah, even though I want to do this, it's clear that the budget says we can't. Then you can't blame her because she I didn't see the budget beforehand. My role wasn't the treasurer. I wasn't the chancellor before this. So how would I have known?
So when they're coming up with their ideas, are they supposed to consult with the treasurer?
For example, in a campaign where two parties are just trying to run to be in the government, you're supposed to have, everyone has like someone in their team who's about money and responsibility and seeing how could you basically sponsor whatever your ideas
Make this
are.
happen, yeah.
But it's all asterisks. It's all depending on if we get in or how much we have or what the other things are. So, and this is why Labour for a long time has been known as the economically illiterate of the two parties. And that's where people who don't know where to vote or swing voters tend to vote for Conservative.
Because at least they know where their money's going.
Because they believe that they are just naturally more like mathematically correct, or that because they don't want to spend a lot, that shows somebody who is mature and someone who's money, versus someone who's going to go, let's make this free, let's do that. Everyone's going to be like, where's the money come from? I don't want to increase my taxes. So they're already like, Whereas if someone goes, no, we can't spend that much. And if we do, we're going to reduce taxes so people who want businesses, they're going to like...
They're thinking, that's what they think. But really, they're not spending that much and they're putting it in their own pocket.
Putting it in their own pocket, spending it on vanity projects that don't affect the masses.
Like, is it Rita Bissell who is getting her eyebrows threaded for like 10 bag?
And they and all their incomes are tax from us. We are paying them. But if you have a way with words, if you have internalized elitism, which is even if you're poor, you actually respect people who advocate for the rich more because you feel like there's a certain amount of intelligence or things that they've seen that you haven't seen, you're going to vote that way. Wow. And then on top of that, depending on what subcategory you are part of, if you're maybe an immigrant who comes from countries where that is actually something that they agree in because it's not race politics in your country necessarily. So you're going to be like, I agree with Conservative Party because they look like a party that I would vote for in a different country.
Yeah, that's a
potentially. You might vote for that. And of course, if you have a certain type of job, you're around certain people, you might be like, all my friends are voting this way. It makes sense. And there's certain topics that they emphasize because if you want to get the student vote, you're going to talk about more education stuff, right? But if you want the business vote, you're going to talk about business zones and investment zones. So it just depends on who they're marketing to at that time. And then you're like, oh, okay, cool.
Wow, okay. Yeah, so what does she say in her budget that was so bad? Because I know that was a biggie. Everyone was talking about that.
Her budget was that she wanted to... It feels like a time ago now. I think the major one was that they wanted to scrap the top rate tax, the 45p tax, which was basically saying that those who earn the most in society will have less tax to pay. And it's like, why would they have less tax to pay when they earn so much more? So everyone was just a bit like, why are you removing that? That doesn't make sense. And that was one of the biggest outrages.
What was her answer as to why?
She was basically saying she wants to stimulate the economy. So her and Kwasi Kwarteng's approach is that they are very much for business. Their sole idea is that they want to deregulate everything, which is basically removing all the taxes and government regulations so England can be more attractive to people with business interests.
Fine.
And so the more business that comes into the country, their belief is that more jobs they create and therefore more profits that come and therefore potentially more taxes, even though we know that so many people will come here, make millions or billions and don't pay tax. So rubbish, right? But what that does is that it gives them economic allies. So when they run the next election, they have more money to spend on adverts and convincing us to vote for them. So it all works in their favour, right? And they get privileges. Obviously, behind closed doors, we know that they sell rights to businesses they're associated with and therefore they protect them in other places. It's all that little kind of oligarchy type of background mini mafia club. And then they're focused on investment zones, which was basically trying to make places where people can come in and have like really low tax rates. And they wanted to make sure that we had lower tax rates than Europe because another area was that we need to be more competitive than Europe. So a lot of the budget was about trying to show why, actually, if you come here, put your HQs here, do your business here, then we're actually more lucrative than Europe. But everyone was kind of looking at it like, you can't just get us to come here with no tax and we know your wider economy looks rubbish. There's nothing interesting about the UK other than that we are the exporters of English and we have a soft power that is education to some degree and we are affiliated with... We have the NHS, but again, you'd only have to have BBC, which probably airs everywhere in the world to know that it's not that great.
Yeah.
So at one point, it gets to a point where it's like, we've seen what you've said, but also we understand that, number one, you're in political turmoil because we don't know who your next prime minister is going to be at any minute. Number two,
This is about Britain, by the way.
yeah, so you've left the EU, which means what is your use? Britain was about 50% of your attraction to most people because they know you're part of a bigger group of people. You've got a bloc that bargains together, all that kind of stuff. It makes sense. There's a lot of freedom of movement. If I want people to work in Britain and there's a lack of workers, I know people from Europe can come over. It's kind of a full safe kind of thing, right? Obviously, EU has its own problems, but that was that. Your importance in the global, linking to that previous point, your importance globally is going because number one, US doesn't see much use for you. You can tell US has kind of turned its back on the UK. It talks to us just for a bit, but
they have to.
They have to because we are English speaking, inheritance of the Celtic, whatever Western. However, on the real scale of things, what are we producing that other people aren't producing? Germany and France and all those other countries, they're more strategically important now, especially because it's now mainland Europe. We were political Europe, but that's mainland Europe. So really and truly, England, the UK is not really there. We know that Scotland has never wasted opportunity to tell us that they're trying to leave. So the UK will end up being England very soon, England and Wales. And once you have England and Wales, then what are you? You're a very small island who, if everyone leaves you, you can be attacked by anyone at any point.
Literally.
So
and you've got enough water around you to be a target.
There you go. So when you look at England, it's like a lot of its power was based on that pre-World War One, World War Two era. But realistically, a lot of powers in this world is about relationships. It's about relationships. It's always been about relationships. We haven't seen the money that they talk about. People can say this is $1 billion country. Who's seen $1 billion? It's not real. What it is real is my relationship, the international power, and being like, actually, strategically, I'm linked to XYZ. If you attack me, there's 10 other countries that are going to come for you. But you left one of the biggest economic
I don't know why
regions
they did that.
you did.
I really don't know. Is he happy about the fact that they left? That we left?
Yeah, I think so. I genuinely don't know what his Brexit views were, but I believe in the campaign they mentioned it. I think Rishi's more like an opportunist in the sense that, give me an issue. I enjoy solving problems. Like I enjoy, the people who are like, he's an ex-banker, for goodness sake. I don't think if there was that moral integrity, and not to be any rude, but if you get so high in hedge fund, it's not really about helping people, is it? It's about playing with money and making rich people rich. Yeah. So on that basis, it's looking for ways to kind of repackage things and make more money from it. So I wouldn't put him as a moral superior person. So I don't think he actually cares. But I think because he didn't cause it, he is in a position to acknowledge there's a failure there because it's not his legacy. So it's okay for him to be like, yeah, that was not the greatest idea.
What's in his budget?
In Rishi's budget, it's basically, by the way, the budgets haven't really drastically changed over.
So he's still doing that tax thing about.
They kept that in, but yeah, it's just he just basically mostly spoke about national minimum wage going up, which is good, which means that people who on the minimum, they're earning more to kind of keep up with inflation. Okay. So hopefully the lowest in that respect are protected. He also said that taxes will go up anyway because over time, but they're going to freeze for a certain amount of time. But if you freeze them and then the cost of living goes up, you're basically saying that we're a bit poorer anyway. His whole thing is basically just saying that we just need to be very fiscally, which is just basically government spending, the concept of government spending. We have to be very conservative about that because we're in for a recession. So as Rishi's come in, the talks of a recession are more and more prevalent. So Rishi's inheriting the coming that is a recession. And I think this is like the second quarter now, or the third quarter that we've experienced economic loss in the UK. And I think the definition is 2 quarters of...
And then we're in a recession.
Yeah, so
we've been in that. We're deep in it.
I think we were in a recession just before the pandemic. It was starting. But then the pandemic gave it a little bit of a boost because people were buying stuff. Amazon became $1 billion, all this kind of stuff. So it was kind of saved by purchasing, by buying all that stuff. But, you can't do anymore.
What's the best type of money spend, economics wise? It can't be purchasing. Well, maybe it is purchasing because you're going to always need new stuff. But is business starting not a good one because then that's risky, isn't it? A business might make money but it also loses money. I'm trying to basically say the pandemic meant more money was spent in consumer goods, like FCG, fast consumer goods or whatever. Yeah. But it meant that there was a loss in other areas like travel and all the rest of it. So is the result of the pandemic because the things that we rely on to boost the economy or keep the economy healthy were stopped, and we might have got supplemented with a bit of buying stuff on Amazon, but that's not going to cut it because we're used to blah blah blah. Yeah. Or is it that something bigger happened in COVID, which meant that we don't? Why is it that COVID was so bad? Obviously, I know logically we weren't going out as much. So that's a big factor. Yeah. But is there something we can literally put our finger on and be like, that's the cause?
No.
Good.
No, I think as you put it already, as you know, if people are spending less and spending less frequently, then businesses, especially small and medium businesses, will go bust. And they are also people who serve local communities, and they tend to be middle class people as well. So that doesn't help, right, in terms of that. Then on top of that, you've now got even the supply of things. Britain can't even buy what it needs to sustain England or the UK, let alone the things that we think is food. They can't import things. They can't buy things at the same rate because they're not being provided because there's issues with the supply chain, or they haven't got enough money to buy it anyway because things have got the cost of oil or gas and stuff has gone up. So there's that. Then don't forget, pandemic came 3 years after we left the EU. So it's like we were still living in a recession that's induced by leaving the EU. And then you've got the fact that you borrowed your way out because you wanted to have a really ambitious plan to kind of like bail people out, to give a facade that we're not suffering. So you borrowed all this money that beforehand, if we just note, that you always said was never available because we have to be responsible. But it's funny that it came from a Tory government that all of a sudden Rishi, as Chancellor, was able to say, look at all this money we're borrowing. Most of that money went to businesses to protect them. Not necessarily the small businesses, but big businesses to protect them. So now it's like, so you borrowed all of that to, again, most of politics is not about what is possible and what makes sense, because a lot of this money that we see is not real. It's not real.
I was about to say, where did we borrow it from? Another country or just more money?
Yeah,
was printed?
you sell government assets, we sell bonds, and basically what that means is that you sell stuff,
So
sell
you F with the stocks.
Yeah, and then people buy it, meaning that they give you cash, believing that eventually, you'll be able to pay it back, whatever, and they give you cash. You also borrow it because banks and that believe in you, because you're Britain.
So you print more money.
Print quantitative easing, you print more money, or money that you were going to put somewhere else.
You move it around.
You move it around. Or maybe money that you never is unaccounted for, that you actually spent, whatever it is. Like, money can come from anywhere because money is... I don't even want to sound like, basically, I don't even like to say Andrew Tate, right? Because listen, I was doing my work, and I'm only saying this because it's random. He said, like, money wasn't real. And I was like, oh, who's on the thing? This sounds interesting. But it was like, yeah. But the only thing I'll say, I think I ever agree with him in anything, is that money's not real. And that's a fact. It's not real. But it has real life implications. Yeah. So they've just borrowed it from anywhere. And then now we have to pay for it. And basically what this whole budget is, or what the Tory party have done since 2022, is basically say, we need a way to pay all this back. But you are going to be blamed for it. Because I don't know any Tory MP who's taken a pay cut. You know what I mean? Like, where we spend our taxes, it's funny how, but you also now want to spend more on military in a time where this is it. And the NHS, which is literally probably, if we had 5 reasons why people should still come to England, I just said NHS is probably one. You've let it go to its brink. And now the ambulance is striking. They've really said that this might be the year. Firefighters. This might be the year that the NHS collapses.
And then collapse, what happens? Private healthcare, that's it.
If the NHS collapses, they'll have to sell it anyway, because what England know how to do is that if something goes wrong, they sell it and hope someone does it. If someone does that, then paying for everything, just how life is now with everything privatized, paying everything's more expensive. It might not be upon when you get an issue, you might have to wait a certain amount of time. And how they treat you, data, how they handle your data, trying to sell things to you, all that kind of stuff happens. But if the NHS collapses, think about the most vulnerable, not us. Most of the time we visit there because we injured our elbow or we need our frequent checkups. The elderly who get cold and sick, people who are pregnant. Chronic illnesses. Accidents that happen. Terminal illnesses. That's a big one. People have to travel all across Europe now to get their care that they need. COVID hasn't left. I think a lot of people you probably know are sick, and I'm sure a lot of it is COVID. But we don't talk about COVID in COVID terms anymore because we can't afford to go back there. And to remind people that it's not going to disappear, by the way, because we didn't solve it. We just took a vaccine. And do you know what I mean? That's it. And it mutates. So there's so much stuff happening. And as climate change happens, there's more, and people live beyond what is humanly necessary for us to go. You're now going to discover new diseases. And when ice caps melt and you go and live in jungles that you're not supposed to go to, you're going to bring back diseases that we've never experienced before. And then that's how it keeps going. And obviously the world is angry at us anyway, the environment. So it's going to keep attacking us.
Well, thanks. I wanted you to really lift the mood. Bloody hell. No, but this is the real. Do you know what I'm saying? This is the real. And this is what I wanted you here for. And thank God next episode is your last episode. I don't know if we can take it anymore. But it's been very insightful. So I'm really happy. But
Thank you.
We'll leave this episode there. Thank you so much for everybody who has been listening up to this point, sending in questions, engaging, and I know I've been mind blown. That budget thing, I still didn't even know. So this has been really, really insightful. And please continue to share, listen, subscribe. I know, as we've just heard, the world is ending, but you might as well listen to a podcast while it does, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, see us on the next episode, which will be the final episode of this series. Bye.